I think recent events in Syria have demonstrated that when things happen, they happen suddenly. Now, the opposition see this, but of course, Nicolas Maduro sees this too. And what Venezuela emphatically shares with Syria is a dependency on Russia, which is, of course, now engaged on with its own issues.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, in Venezuela, the opposition leader has been freed after reportedly being kidnapped on the eve of the inauguration of her political rival, Nicolas Maduro. Maria Correa Machado had been making her first public appearance in months at a protest against Maduro, who's set to be sworn in for his third presidential term. The 62-year-old was declared the winner of last year's election, a result rejected as fraudulent by many countries, including the United States. Jon Bonfiglio is the Latin America correspondent for The Times and joins me now. Hello, John.
Hi, Henry.
Hi. Pretty interesting to see that the opposition leader Machado made her first public appearance in months. She took that risk and then was kidnapped and then freed. What do you make of this?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's actually in the opposition's interests at the moment to have figures like Maria Corina Machado detained, held, because that inflames the opposition, that inflames the public all the more, and suggests that it increases the possibility that they will take to the streets in even greater numbers tomorrow. Interestingly, it was actually Freddy Náñez, the information minister, a term which I advisedly use in inverted commas for Venezuela, who was one of the first to share a video of her release saying she was free. The government, the administration definitely do not want to encourage. They're using a sort of stick and carrot approach, but they definitely don't want to inflame the situation any further as things stand in the country ahead of what is a huge day for Venezuela tomorrow, in which Nicolas Maduro is due to be sworn in. But at the same time, the other individual, the second individual, Edmundo González, who by all accounts, by all measures, won the presidential election over the summer, he's been on a world tour with leaders keeping the issue in the spotlight. But he's saying that he will be back in Venezuela by tomorrow, accompanied by a number of ex-presidents, international ex-presidents. And if that is the case, he is landing into a Caracas in which his face is on wanted posters right across the city.
How do you expect people to react? I'm talking about opposition activists and the people that follow them. Are they expected to throng the streets tomorrow?
That is what the opposition hopes. That is what the opposition needs in order to generate sort of a critical mass to, if you like, have the military that are crucial in all this, to have soldiers facing off against their family members across a square, across a street, in the hope that it is that same military that will change sides. And in fact, Maria Corina Machado has been said that in her speech this afternoon, just before she was detained. She said that in homes across the country today, this evening, there will be families discussing. There will be mothers and sisters and uncles urging their members of the military to change sides tomorrow, to bring about the end of this regime that has brought unprecedented misery upon Venezuelans. Remember, Venezuela was once the breadbasket of South America, and now it has over the course of the last 10 years been party to the biggest internal migration in the history of the continent.
Yeah, some 7 million Venezuelans have left the country in recent years, haven't they? And John, when you look at Maduro, the way he campaigned for his latest term, he's already been in power for 12 years. Do we get any sense of how he's going to govern going forward?
Much the same, I think. He has one playbook. It is a playbook we see the world over, and we've seen across his previous terms. I think that there's a couple of things which are maybe geopolitically different at this particular point in time. Interesting, I think recent events in Syria have demonstrated that when things happen, they happen suddenly. Now, the opposition see this, but of course, Nicolas Maduro sees this too. And what Venezuela emphatically shares with Syria is a dependency on Russia, which is, of course, now engaged with its own issues. And then the other thing, of course, is that Nicolas Maduro is not the only president being sworn in this month. We're going to see the inauguration of Donald Trump. And of course, as regards his presidency, his foreign policy, all bets are off, which we've seen in the media cycles over the course of the last few weeks, as regards Greenland, the Panama Canal, and so on, developing a now seemingly interventionist policy. So who knows what is going to take place there?
Yeah, I'm just looking at what Trump said on Truth Social, calling on Maduro to ensure the safety of these, he calls them freedom fighters. They must not be harmed and must stay safe and alive. How seriously do you think the Maduro regime will take the warnings of Donald Trump? Because they don't really know what he's going to do they?
No, they have absolutely no idea. And actually, when Trump won the election, Maduro was one of the first leaders to come out and actually congratulate Trump and say that despite their differences, that they were able to have a conversation. Actually, I think that the election of Donald Trump offers, if you like, an opportunity for Maduro to break the international status quo, because, of course, he and Venezuela are hugely diplomatically isolated, even by their own leftist allies in Latin America. But you know, the completely unprecedented decisions that we know Donald Trump is going to take whilst in office gives Maduro, I think, some hope that they might actually be able to sit across a table from each other and come to some unusual agreement.
Can you explain why Venezuela, despite being so oil rich, I think they've got even greater reserves than Saudi Arabia, it remains so poor?
So Venezuela has the largest known oil reserves on Earth. Fundamentally, their gamble on oil meant that it went incredibly well for them and brought unprecedented numbers out of poverty in the early noughties under Maduro's predecessors, Hugo Chavez's time in power. But then the price of oil dropped, and then, of course, as often happens with autocratic regimes, huge amounts of corruption and graft took place as well. So this whole huge industry of oil, which had so benefited the country, was left to rot, basically. And now they do not have the ability to tap their own huge oil reserves, and that was a sort of an economic spiral which led to triple-digit inflation figures, to food shortages, to medical shortages, to electricity shortfalls across the grid. So it was almost sort of a perfect storm, which led to an economic crisis, which Venezuela is only really just starting to peer out over the top of.
What about those people who look north and say, well, it's all because of the Americans? I've got a few friends on the left who point to that and say both Chavez before him and Maduro have been hampered unfairly by Western countries, notably the United States.
Well, I mean, if the broad accusation is that the USA has interfered in Latin America for as far back as we can remember, especially in terms of destabilizing regimes that are not in accord with their own policies, of course that is true. But by the same token, Chavez and specifically Nicolas Maduro keep playing the imperialist card in a way which now is verging on farcical.
All right. Jon Bonfiglio, the Times Latin America correspondent, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Your response to what Jon had to say about Venezuela, about Maduro, about US involvement in Latin America would be welcome in the usual way.